Hello and welcome to your stimulus update. Today we have a ton to cover regarding, will there be a fourth stimulus check? We're going to talk about the odds with that. We're going to talk about the speed of the stimulus payment that just came out, the $1,400 stimulus check. We have a paycheck protection update. We're going to talk about Bitcoin. We're going to talk about Jerome Powell. And let's just go ahead and hop right into the news here. So starting off with stimulus checks, 90 million stimulus payments have been sent out at that $1,400 amount. And that was the very first wave of payments. That was largely people who either filed their taxes electronically for 2019 or 2020, or filled out that non-filers tool for the last stimulus payments. That was the bulk of this first round, people who have already received their payment. Now, many people even received their payment last weekend. Basically what happened here is the IRS hit their big red button to deploy the first round of payments. And they had a arrival date of Wednesday the 17th. But certain people received their payments before that. I mean, on the weekend, at least it was pending in their account on the weekend. And many other people, especially those who bank at large banks like Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, had to wait until the 17th in order to receive their payments, as long as all the other stars align. There's many people who bank at those various locations and still haven't received anything. If you haven't received anything yet, check out the Get My Payment tool so you can see the status. If your tax return is still being processed, you probably haven't received anything yet because they don't know what your income level is for 2020. There's various reasons as to why you maybe haven't received your payment yet. Maybe you moved recently, maybe you switched bank accounts. There's lots of reasons as to why. So check out that Get My Payment tool. That'll illuminate a little bit more as to what's going on. A lot of people, when you log in, it'll say that it's still processing, and unfortunately in that case you just have to wait. So some people received their payment much earlier. And why did this happen? Well, it turns out that certain banks like Chime Bank just decided to go ahead and float those payments to its customers without actually receiving the deposit from the Treasury / the IRS yet, where other banks like the larger banks, Wells Fargo, Chase, whoever, waited until Wednesday when that was the official date where they received the funds and then can disperse them to their customers. So it turns out there wasn't as much malice with these big banks who, could have earned more money on overdraft fees for those extra days and things like that. It seems that it just came down to simply they received the funds on that day, where other banks decided to go out of pocket, take some risk, and pay their customers. Now, I will say that that is a great piece of advertisement for banks like Chime Bank by just paying their customers early, because then there's all these people who are like, I'm switching to Chime Bank. So awesome. If there was a marketing strategy, they did an awesome job there, because ultimately they're going to send those payments out either way. If you do it 2 days early, you get all this good press. That's pretty smart. They probably lost out on a couple $1,000,000, but how many new accounts were gained because of this? I'm not sure. It seems like an overall good idea. So that true deposit date was the 17th. Now we expect to see the rest from there. Now about 150,000 paper checks have already been sent out. Now that sounds like a lot, but really when we're talking of like 180 million people who received the stimulus check, that's like a drop in the bucket. And we can expect that to ramp up more and more as the coming weeks go past, but it'll be a while for all the paper checks to be sent out. And like the first rounds, the lowest income earners will receive those paper checks first, and then the highest income earners will receive them last. And also something important to note is, in this most recent stimulus bill, there was a stipulation that the IRS will have to make it allowable to supplement stimulus checks if you receive the incorrect amount. So there's going to be some way, whether that be on the Get My Payment tool, on a new non-filers tool, where you're going to be able to say, hey, I was supposed to get an extra $500 or whatever it might be, and then they can add a supplemental stimulus check so you don't have to wait until you do your taxes to receive this full payment. So I'm really excited about that. We don't know exactly how that system is going to work quite yet. Moving on from here, 21 state attorneys are threatening to sue the Biden administration over the state and local government funding portion of the latest stimulus bill, that $350 billion portion of the latest $1.9 trillion stimulus bill. Their issue is that the bill actually disallows states from using their federal money to pay for revenue tax cuts within the state. So you can't use that stimulus money to pay for tax cuts under the stimulus bill. Now, the wording here is pretty vague and not super specific, weird enough because it's a 600-page bill, but they're upset that these states who may want to offer tax relief can't, because it might mean they're not able to take the stimulus money for their state. Now, a Biden official on this said, quote, "This does not say that states cannot cut taxes at all. It simply instructs them not to use that money to offset net revenues lost if the state chooses to cut taxes." Now, that's still a little bit up in the air, so we're going to have to keep an eye on this and see what exactly happens. But it's just one of those weird scenarios where like the legal language might cause some problems, but we might see some potential lawsuits there. Now on to the potential fourth stimulus check. I've received some messages on this. Is it possible that we may see a fourth stimulus check? And I guess I would say it's not impossible. If we go back a few months, there was several bills to offer reoccurring stimulus payments. In fact, I found a quote here from one of those, and this quote goes, "Another one-time round of checks," this happened before this latest round of checks, "another one-time round of checks would provide a temporary lifeline. But when that money runs out, families will once again struggle to pay for basic necessities. One more check is not enough during this public health and economic crisis." So we know that there are a group of representatives who want reoccurring payments. But reoccurring payments most likely won't happen because this bill even had to pass with budget reconciliation. I don't believe that reoccurring payments could actually be passed with budget reconciliation. Of course, it's very hard with reconciliation. It's so nuanced. But we do know that another round of checks could pass with budget reconciliation. So I would say it's far from impossible that we could potentially see another round of checks if the economic damage here lasts longer than we want it to or we expect it to. If this keeps dragging on, which it might, we could very well see another stimulus payment. Now, what is the timeline for that? Of course, many people still haven't received this stimulus payment that was just approved like a week ago. So I would say earliest we'd be looking at like 3 months from now, but it's not impossible. I don't even want to put a percentage down as to what the exact possibilities are here, but it's definitely not impossible. Now from here, moving on to Paycheck Protection extension news. It's looking better and better that the Paycheck Protection Program is going to be extended by 2 months. And then the SBA will have their deadline for approval 30 days after that. And this is extremely exciting. It was passed in the House, almost unanimous. Only 3 people voted against it in all of the House, including all the Republicans. And then it goes to the Senate, and it's already looking like it's just going to be like a easy, no problem. Let's get this thing passed. It makes total sense to get this passed. Let's start churning that economic butter. The hand movements I need to figure out a better hand movement for churn the economic butter. Let's start churning that economic butter again. Get these paycheck protection loans rolled out. Get this thing extended. Get all the issues ironed out, and then maybe we can change it so people can up their PPP, extend their PPP size from net income to gross income. That would be a great change to see as well. That's not as part of the bill, but it might be in the future because that's another glaring issue with this. But it's looking very good that this will be extended, that we'll get our PPPs extended. Moving on from here, Jerome Powell spoke yesterday on the Fed's plan for the near and the long term. And there was many people worried about this because we didn't know if they were going to come out and say, hey, we're bumping interest rates up, and this could very negatively impact the stock market, at least in the short run. It might be a good thing in the long run. We don't really know exactly. Well, he came out and said that they plan to keep interest rates between 0% and 0.25% for the foreseeable future. And they plan to keep it there until they see inflation raise to an average of 2% over the long term, and they see employment rates hit optimal levels, which is an unemployment rate between about 3.5% to 4%, and we're at about 6.5% right now. So we're looking at a while, like it might be multiple years before both of those goals are hit. And then at that point, after those goals are hit, they will raise interest rates. Now, he also said that we will very likely see increased inflation in the short term, something like 2.5%, and especially we'll see a spike in March and April of this year because how the 12-month rolling inflation average works. March and April of last year had very, very low inflation with how little people were buying things. So once we go into those months, there's going to kind of be an overreaction where inflation is going to look like it spikes much higher than it even does. And maybe inflation in those months might look like 3%, low 3%. And then after that, it'll probably average out for the year around 2.4%. And hopefully average down to about 2% within 3 or 4 years from now, which is what the Fed says is the optimal rate. Now, after Jerome did his announcements yesterday, the stocks rallied. Most stocks went up a few percentage points. Bitcoin went up. Let's take a look at my Bitcoin purchase the other day. If you didn't see, I posted a video the other day where I purchased $25,000 in Bitcoin on the recent Bitcoin dip. And this is how it's looking for those who are interested in all things Bitcoin. Looking pretty good because this was actually negative 2% before the Fed update with Jerome Powell, and now it is currently plus 4.7%, and I'm up almost $1,500 in about a day and a half. So not too shabby there. Feel free to watch that video if you're interested in Bitcoin. I plan on posting more videos on cryptocurrencies and things like that. So that is your entire update. Oh, also make sure you click the link in the description for Webull where you can get 2 free stocks. But that was your entire economic update: stimulus, PPP, stocks, Jerome Powell, churning the economic butter, you name it, we covered it. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a profitable day.